Hey, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon and welcome to SPJIMR today. May I request everyone to please place their mobile phones on silent or switched off. If you're not getting network here, well and good, please leave it as it is. May I request the dignitaries, Dr. Nagraj, Ms. Mansinka, Mr. Bhatia, Manoj, as well as Dr. Verma to please come on stage before we do the lamp lighting. Ladies and gentlemen, once again a very good afternoon. I welcome you all to an extremely significant event today, the curtain raiser for the Finnovate Accelerator and the launch of the Sunil Bhatia Startup Hub. I am Yash Merchant and I head the Central Communications function for SPJIMR, and I will be your host this afternoon and evening. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin today's mega event and I invite some exceptional leaders to deliver their addresses to you, I would like to share with you something historic that has just transpired a few moments ago. Mr. Sunil Bhatia, our very own alumnus from the class of 1989, has committed a 10 crore endowment towards SPJIMR Center for Financial Innovation. Through this endowment, the center has set up the Sunil Bhatia Startup Hub, which aims to offer vital financial support for educational and networking initiatives that aim to cultivate entrepreneurship through three essential stages: pre-incubation, incubation, and acceleration. On behalf of all of us at SPJIMR, I thank you, sir. Your generous commitment will make a significant difference in creating an enabling environment for budding entrepreneurs. A round of applause once again, ladies and gentlemen. Can we have the edit of the video? Thank you so much. It's now time to begin the event we've all been looking forward to since the last few weeks, the curtain raiser of the Finnovate Accelerator. I'd like to invite Dr. Verma, Mr. Bhatia, Ms. Mansinka, Mr. Parag Rao, our CFI board member, and Dr. Nagraj to begin the proceedings by lighting the lamp. Thank you. I would now like to invite Mr. Manoj Mohan, Executive Director of the Center of Financial Innovation and Head Finnovate, to give us an overview of the center's initiatives. Manoj, also an SPJIMR alumnus from the class of 2006, has been part of shaping India's financial landscape since a couple of decades now. Before joining SPJIMR in his 15 plus years at Standard Chartered, Manoj undertook varied roles in investment banking. His leadership role at Standard Chartered as an executive director, loan syndicate, and distribution. He's an expert in credit, structuring, and institutional sales. Ladies and gentlemen, Manoj Mohan.
Hi, a warm welcome to all of you as we inaugurate SPJIMR Finnovate Accelerator. It gives me immense pleasure to talk about this initiative. Many of you know me personally, and I've already talked about the initiative a lot of times, but it's still a lot of pleasure to kind of what we've done here. I want to kind of tell about why did we start this initiative, how did we go about it, and where we want to take it forward. The journey of Finnovate started roughly about 8 to 9 months back, when a few of us wanted to do something really transformational, something that is truly different. And the question was what? And most of you have read that SPJIMR is already ranked number 5 amongst the top schools. And if you look around A, B, and C, you will find most of them have very established startup centers and incubators. And we felt that SPJIMR can do a lot more in this space. But the question was, do we be an incubator again? Considering that there are 326 incubators as per latest count, there was no excitement and joy in being another incubator in the list. Then we again took a hard look at what we are good at, and as a premium business school based in Bombay, with a very credible alumni base, massive corporate connect, it was only natural that we should do something much more impactful. And if you look at the India startup landscape, as successful as incubators are, as many incubators as you may find, you don't have that many more accelerators as you have today. So it was a very natural fitment. Bombay, fantastic alumni base, excellent corporate connect, accelerator seemed to be the game we had to go for. So that was the easiest part. So we decided we'll do the accelerator. Then that's the reason why we are here today. The second part is, how do we go about creating it? Now we were very clear that whatever we do has to be long lasting. Now if you have to do something long lasting, 2 things are extremely important. One, it has to be of extremely high quality to sustain itself through cycles. And second, it has to have the right ethos and values. Now I want to focus on the quality a little bit more. And that's how the Finnovate was structured. That's how Finnovate is going to be different. And later we will build on how the Startup Hub came into the vision and all of it. When we looked at accelerators around, accelerator as a word is very liberally used. You will find the whole thing started with Y Combinator, Paul Graham in 2005. Today we have Techstars. We've got lots of accelerators globally. A few of them are in India. But when we spoke to many of the founders, some of them are already here, they were not getting the kind of impact that we expected from the accelerator. So what transpired is we decided whatever we put has to be extremely high quality, and the founders said they need 3 things. They need funding, they need business, and they need high quality mentorship. So we went about creating that. So today if you look at Finnovate, we have Mumbai Angels as our startup partner. They effectively, all the startups who are getting into Finnovate get an automatic opportunity to get into the Mumbai Angels pitch book, right? And they have a selection ratio of less than 2% or 1%. We have 30 plus mentors, many of them are C-suite folks. And we have gone a step ahead, and we have also tied up with 10 corporate partners who are willing to give all of these startups a look into their business to be either a strategic investor or a partner to them. So on a single platform for startups in the fintech, techfin, and deep tech space, we are giving them access to corporates, we are giving them access to extremely talented mentors, and we are giving them access to funding. We said that's not enough. Okay, this is good, this is still, a lot of it is out there. What can we do more? So that's where we came with the step 2. We said, let's not call it an accelerator anymore, let's move it as a deep impact program, wherein out of the 30 mentors, a few of us can step up and actually start working on a customized acceleration plan for each of the startups. Every startup get a specific plan of action over 3 to 4 months that they can implement and hopefully move them into the next trajectory. That is the commitment we have made to the 20 founders of the 12 startups who have joined us here. And that's a target which each of us are working on. Many of the founders have actually held me to it, saying that we've left a few accelerators come here because you've said all of this, and said no pressure, and said we will deliver it. Now, we got so far. The most important thing, so that's about the program. The most fascinating thing in all of this journey for me was the speed. I've worked in Standard Chartered, which is a fairly fast organization. I've seen education institutions. I've seen other corporates. I don't think we could have created anything what we have created here in under 6 months. The whole core of Finnovate and the whole startup initiative was created in under 4 months. All the partnership you're seeing is created under 4 months. Right? Now, more than the speed, that is a testament to the conviction in the brand Bhavan's SPJIMR. That's a testament to the ethos of 80 years of Bhavan's legacy, 40 years of SPJIMR legacy, and the conviction that this is a group of people who means business and who can deliver business. But this would not have happened if it was not for 4 key stakeholders. That's where also the vision to the future is light. First and foremost, Varun. He's very different compared to all other deans one may find in the academic circuit. He's a startup founder himself. It's the whole startup behind him. It's actually an understatement to say that he gave me vision and guidance, right? He was 2 steps ahead of me all the time, right? And most importantly, in fact, yesterday's conversation actually gave me a reckoning that, okay, this is where it actually mattered. I was speaking to a center head at another university who similarly got a 5 crore funding some time back, and the person hasn't been able to do anything, and they were struggling for a director to retire because they were struggling to pass a 2,000 rupees bill because the director would make comments and they will not get it, right? Varun gave me a full runway. This is no bureaucracy, no problems, you just cruise along, right? And a lot of mentor and guiding. The second person is Nandini. Nandini, the reason why her contribution is extremely important is when I first went to her, she just said yes on a conversation, right? She did not ask me what is SPJIMR's background, how many startup initiatives have you done, you worked in Standard Chartered, what do you know about startup, nothing. She just said, okay, fine, your vision sounds good, let's build it, right? The third conversation for us was, so we got the management, we've got the investor. The third key part was the corporate partners. The third was Parag. Unfortunately, he couldn't join of HDFC Bank. Parag is also on the board of our CFI. And with Parag as well, we had the same conversation. Again, came on board on a conversation, and we also had the blessing of Sri Deepak Parekh. Both of them came on board on just conversations of what we could deliver. And lastly, and most importantly, what truly gives this initiative scale is Sunil. So Sunil, again, a person who just saw slides and decided to commit to it, and not only commit to it, to today now as an accelerator to make it much bigger initiative to a full startup hub. Sunil's endowment has 2-fold effect to the whole initiative. One, it helps us build scale. As an accelerator, we would have been only able to influence 10, 20 startups at best. But with the hub, we have a roadmap to engage 100, 200 startups every year, all the way from a founder having an idea to pre-revenue. And then the accelerator can step in, right? But most importantly, it's very easy to say that you've got an endowment, you've got scale. The endowment from Sunil is very different from any other form of corporate sponsorship we can get because, like I said in the beginning, we are looking for 2 things when you build a long-lasting initiative, ethos and quality. Sunil's endowment allows us to operate at a platform where we don't need to worry about return on investment. Many of the accelerators today select startups on the basis of the multiplier effect that the startup can potentially bring to them. We want to take a step back and look at social ROI. We want to build startups which can make a difference. We don't have to be stuck to a rotten profit that we may make. We are Bhavans, we are SPJIMR, we have always done things differently. All of my alumni friends sitting here will agree that SPJIMR was the first with the social consciousness. We had DOCC program, we have tons of programs. We've always done things differently, always done things ought to be done right. So with Sunil's support, today we are in a position where an accelerator, which was just an idea, we've got 12 startups, 20 brilliant founders sitting here, and we want to scale it up big and make it a massive initiative. In 12 months' time, we want to be in a position here talking about 100 startups and how we change the life of at least 5 or 10 founders of those 10 startups. Thank you, all of you, for being here. It's very special for us, and I once again welcome you for.
Thank you, Manoj, for that wonderful overview of the center. It's terrific to note the way the center's journey is taking shape, and I wish you and the team CFI the very best. Before we move on, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank our partners for the accelerator. Startup partner Mumbai Angels, corporate partners HDFC, SBI, Reliance Smart Money, Razorpay, IDFC First, ICICI Pru Asset Management, ICICI Lombard, Federal Bank, and Yes Bank. Our outreach partners, Maharashtra State Innovation Society, TIE Bangalore, and Zone Startups India. Our ecosystem partners, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft for Startups, Founders Hub, and Peer Council. Now, our next speaker this afternoon is Dr. Pramod Verma. For those of you that know Dr. Verma, you would also know and agree with the fact that his contributions to the nation and society at large have positively impacted each one of us, our families, friends, and probably each and every Indian you know. It's indeed an honor for me to welcome Dr. Verma to SPJIMR. Thank you for being here, sir. Dr. Verma is the former chief architect of Aadhaar, India's digital identity program that has successfully covered more than 1.3 billion people. He was also the chief architect for various India stack layers such as eSign, DigiLocker, UPI, Data Empowerment and Protection Architecture, all of which are now working at population scale in the country. He played an integral role in architecting India's digital health infrastructure, vaccination and immunization infrastructure, including CoWIN and DIVOC, and Unified Health Interface, UHI. He is currently the CTO of Ek Step Foundation, a not-for-profit creating learner-centric digital public goods under Project Sunbird. These power India's largest digital learning infrastructure called Diksha, providing learning opportunities to 200 million plus children and 10 million plus teachers across the country. Sunbird building blocks are used in other learning, skilling, and capacity building efforts in India as well as other countries. As part of this effort, he also helped design India's digital education and skilling architecture blueprint called Endear. In addition, he is the co-founder of FIDE.org. He is the genesis author of the open source Beacon protocol that helps create decentralized open discovery, fulfillment, and transaction networks. Beacon protocol is the base protocol for India's new commerce infrastructure efforts such as Open Network for Digital Commerce, ONDC, Kochi Open Mobility Network, and Nammayatri. He is also an adjunct faculty and co-chair at the Global Center for DPI, a non-profit helping countries design and architect their own digital public infrastructure systems, in addition to building local capacity. He is also an advisor to UIDAI, NPCI, the GST Network, National Health Authority, SEBI, ONDC, Turing Institute Identity Initiative in the UK, and helps with many digital public infrastructure initiatives across the country and the globe. Mr. Verma holds a master's and PhD degree in computer science, along with a second master's in applied mathematics. His interests include internet-scale distributed architects and intelligence systems. He is passionate about technology, science, society, and teaching. Once again, please join me in welcoming Mr. Pramod Verma, who will now deliver the keynote.
Thank you so much. Can you put up the slide? Yes. Thank you so much for having me. Sorry I had to push you out. I prefer walking around. Okay. By the way, I'm among, when I hear Manoj speaking about being in business, all the businessmen, I either disrupt your business or I amplify your business. Okay, I'm not a businessman, but I build things like UPI that will allow somebody else to do business, I suppose. So, it's a pleasure to be here. I want to take you through what India is going through. And many of you may not have seen the full picture yet. And that's an important thing to view, especially if you're an entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur, you want to be able to see where India is going and where the world is going so that you can play the game right. So it's very key to understand the larger picture. So thanks for the opportunity again. Thanks for the introduction. It was long and boring. Nobody wants to hear the introduction, but nevertheless, okay. So this is the picture in 2009. That's when Aadhaar, Dr. Manmohan Singh invited Nandan to take up Aadhaar. And when we look at 2009, India had 17%, 17, people banked. So much of India was not included in the banking, and it's important to keep this picture in mind. And at the same time, India is also a welfare nation. We provide a lot of subsidies for the country, for a lot of people. You know, most well-known cooking gas subsidy, the cylinder, LPG cylinder subsidy, fertilizer, of course, our electricity is subsidized. You know, everything is subsidized. Actually, half of the things we don't even know is subsidized. A lot of things we knew subsidized. Some of them gone away finally, for good reasons. We shouldn't be getting subsidies for for good reason. And many of that. But we were at in 2009 we were actually about 50 billion. Currently, it's about 80 billion US dollars. Okay, we have even touched about 100 billion a year. $100 billion a year going down to people, or 50 billion then. Imagine that you are giving money, government is giving money to people who we can't identify, people who don't have bank accounts. So if you were the government, the only way to give this money is through large supply chain of intermediaries or subsidized product. And that was the problem. That's precisely what created the middleman and the extreme leakage that India was facing. Half of the money at least was leaking, and that was a lot of money for the middleman, okay, to keep. And this is also another issue. When we were looking at it, this is as late as 2016. I'm an advisor to SEBI, and when we are analyzing SEBI mutual fund, why is mutual fund not growing? Why capital market participation not growing? And this is very clearly comes down to the economics of it. A mutual fund distributor today gets 50 bips, 0.5% commission to sell, and the cost of KYC alone, SEBI's KYC norms, alone was 1,500 rupees. So if you are 1,500 rupees, this is not, doesn't include calling the people, collecting the paper, going home and all the stuff you need to do. You have to chase people to sign some things up. This is purely KYC cost. And if you're getting 0.5% commission, and if cost is 1,500 rupees, you need the customer to write 3 lakh check just to cut even. And the people who can write 3 lakh check are 22 million people. So we had tapered at 22 million people, 2.2 crore. That was it. So we have 100 crore or billion people out of that 22 million. And if you look at credit cards, we're roughly about 22 million. And you will see this pattern. And today, entire EdTech system, including Byju's, all put together, we have reached about 18 million. With all the health tech, we are at 12, 13 million consumers. So you will see this repeating pattern that you are almost in the top, if you are in the top 30 million or top 30, 40 million, you have everything. And then if you are outside that remaining, 950 million adults, so about 850 million plus people, if you are among the 850 million people, you get nothing. And that's not a sign we want to be in, right? That's not a country, and that's not a sustainable model at all for the country, because eventually it will backfire. And the great divide is not going to take us anywhere else. So if you analyze them, and if you're a businessman, you would analyze, why is the is it because the fintech company trying to do mutual fund distribution bad, that they don't want to serve the poor people? No. Of course they want to do. Is it because ICICI Bank or HDFC Bank don't want to open branches? No, they do want to. But the cost of business, cost of owning, 600,000 villages. There is no way banks can open branches in all these places. So the banking was not even viable, because putting money in the bank means 50 kilometers at least, traveling 50 kilometers away to get to a branch, or quasi-looking branch. So that's a day's wage. So it's a pure economics, right? Working out, people saying it doesn't make any sense to spend the whole day going to a bank branch and standing in line. Probably bank branch is closed, then you come back, go another day. So it is very interesting that it breaks down finally to cost of doing business, cost of innovating, and cost of customer acquisition, cost of trust. Cost of trust is what's costing the KYC complexity, right? And this is a study from 2020. Fast forward 10 years. This is 2009, 2010, and we fast forward 2020. This is a study from Bureau of International Settlements in Basel. There is a central bank of central banks who studied India's progress banking, financial industry progress, and they were blown away because they didn't know what the hell was going on here. Because it's such a compressed time, something magic is happening here, and they can't figure out in a normal way. And they analyzed using our GDP, and they said if you plot our GDP curve and our scale, we would take 5 decades to go from sub 20% banking penetration all the way to the 80%. That means if you start in 2020, 2060, we would have probably given bank accounts to 80% of the people. And we achieved this in flat 7 years. So this is unbelievable. And this shows something very, very non-linear to them. It's not a linear progress, it's exponential. What's going on? And that's not the only case. At the same time, we went from, in 2014, we were 30 million people were doing digital banking, or digital payments, 30 million, or sub 50 million at best. Today we have 500 million people doing digital payments. 500. That's half our country doing digital payments. That's an amazing journey. All this in a compressed time. Think about it. UPI was launched in 2016, zero transaction in 2016, 9 billion transactions last month, right? So, how many of you use UPI? I suppose you. How many of you don't use UPI? That's a good question. Are there anybody seriously? Maybe you are not using it. Oh, you are? Okay. Good, good, good. Because being outside India may be tricky. But everybody has other, I presume. That's also pretty much the case. Yeah. So this non-linearity is a very, very important. And that's a recurring pattern in India. That we are doing everything in a compressed timeline. Many, many good reasons. And I'll tell you the theory behind it. At the same time, we also, DPI stands for Digital Public Infrastructure. So if you look at our India stack, it's sort of loosely coupled as, termed as Digital Public Infrastructure, quite like the way physical highways are built. Innovation, economy drives around the highway. US, we saw that in the highway economy. UK, of course, railroad economy and so on. India is doing that to digital highways through which economic, empowerment is happening. Now, we also transformed GST. Now, this was a hard shift, and many of you went through it, going through it, like as a businessman. It's not easy, but when you unified, it made a completely different magical ripple effects. Unified taxation also meant electronic invoicing. That means data is now becoming machine readable, verifiable. And that means a lot to SMEs who are struggling in the system, who says, I do business, 20,000 rupees, 30,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees a month. There's no proof. There's no way I can non-repudiably prove that I do everything. Today the system generates, the side effect of GST generates invoices that is actually digitally signed. When you have digitally signed, immutable invoices, now I can take those invoices, actually walk into the bank and ask for a lending offer, right? Because now banks can actually verify it is true invoices. It's not fake ones, right? And this is massive. And combine that with FASTag, and FASTag design started in 2017. Some of us were part of that early design, and now it's everywhere, right? Doing many. And beautifully at the same time, even large telecom went through. And it happened in Mumbai, geo effect. I don't have to talk to you about that. We went from 1 GB a month per capita mobile data consumption to 1 GB a day. Indians today are the largest mobile data consumers in the world. Don't ask what they do. Okay, I have no idea. But I suppose YouTube or something, maybe, yeah. Yeah. Little far, this way? Okay, I can't move. Whatever it works, okay. Maybe you can come over. Come closer, yeah. It's not so bad. Okay, is that okay? Yeah, so this is a transformation that actually happened, and there's a story here. Mukesh actually was one of the entrepreneurial hat he wore when he said, I'm going to change the way I acquire consumers. Now, of course, he invested massively in the 4G pipeline behind. But even then, even with Aadhaar eKYC, banks were opening, because we saw that, right? We opened bank accounts to 85% or 90% of the country in no time, but telcos were not using. Telcos were not using electronic KYC. Even this is the this is where entrepreneurship comes in, right? Incumbents don't make the moves for many, many reasons. Incumbents, Airtel, they're all on it, thinking about how to bring electronic KYC to reduce the cost of customer acquisition from whatever, roughly about 50, 60 or 100 rupees to almost nothing. But they wouldn't. And eventually, when Mukesh, he had a 6 months jumpstart to zero price it. Jio was zero priced for 6 months because the TRAI allowed it. And in 6 months, he acquired 100 million users with zero paperwork. Because he could leverage Aadhaar eKYC, and he could leverage bank account connection, he could leverage underlying digital building blocks to reimagine the way how customer acquisition ought to work. And the moment he did, everybody else did. Now we don't walk into SIM card and fill up any more forms, right? Entirely, it's paperless. And we also did DigiLocker. And this, a few months ago, Bill Gates was here, and he was looking at it, and he was saying, while we've been telling him about DigiLocker, they actually experienced it. And he was like, Nandan, I can't do what is this? All great stuff. He said, yeah, we have been building this up for a while. We have been using this for a while. And now with DigiYatra, it's a shame Mumbai airport doesn't have DigiYatra. You guys have to write, okay? Much of the airports have started having DigiYatra. It's absolute fabulous pass-through. Why is it? When it unlocks value to every citizen, that is when societal transformation starts happening, right? It's not in pockets anymore. So it's convenience. The security guard at the airport will tell you, sir, aapka paas DigiLocker nahi hai. You should be downloading. Because why are you walking around with this an ID card and all that thing, right? It's very, very interesting that it's innate. It is starting to get infused into the society, a digital way of thinking. And we did, then COVID hit, and then we had to do vaccination for 1 billion people twice over, and we managed to pull that off magically. But that was also COVID. We built together, launched very fast. But we also did one thing. As side effect of COVID, you have to get vaccination, you have to get vaccination. But we also made sure Indian economy is a service-driven economy. People can't come back to the job if they can't prove I'm vaccinated. So India is one of the very, very early countries who worked with WHO to create what's called a digitally verifiable health credential. The QR code in your COVID certificate is actually digitally signed. Now, small countries like Singapore can pull it off, and parts of Europe, of course, can pull it off because they're smaller countries. At a billion scale, people pulling it off, it's very, very different. Now, because of this, it became one of the 4 international standards of vaccination. India's standard is one of them, by the way, of international standard that WHO has adopted. And we also changed our school learning. And this is one of the reasons, a few days back, World Bank, one of the World Bank presentation, podcasts, World Bank tracks something called learning poverty. Learning poverty index shows where the country, the higher the index, you're poorer. Okay, so higher is not good, higher is poorer, and lower is good. We are at about 52. We have been around 52. We know much to do in learning. We have to do a lot more in school education. But we were at 52. Many countries during COVID slipped from 52 to 80, 75 and 80. Poverty. An order of 20-point slip because of nobody went to school. India slipped from 52 to 58. So India managed to stay on course, bad or good, but average, but didn't slip dramatically. Imagine the costs of we slipping our school education further down. We would have gone back to 50 years ago. First of all, our per capita is like sub-Saharan countries, right? Although we are the 4th largest or 5th largest, very soon 4th largest economy, our per capita still like sub-Saharan. And without education, we would have degraded really bad. Right? So you guys are extremely privileged class of the society. But there's a 200 to 300 million children who are at the bottom, who are in regular schools. And you can't afford to. And Diksha is one of the investment India made without knowing COVID is going to come. And this is why digital intervention, digital infrastructure, laying digital infrastructure also brings resilience. When unknowns happen, unknowns like COVID happened. And when the war happened, we saw geopolitics playing out. MasterCard and Visa switched off the payment network. in Russia. Good, bad, ugly, we don't know. It's a political discussion. But imagine individuals. What happens to a business there? What happens to an individual? Because state is different from the individual. It's very important to differentiate those two, right? No, we were very, very resilient. Nobody can switch off our payment network. So it's becoming Europe, this is becoming a sovereign discussions. Why we ought to have our own payment network. We ought to have our national critical infrastructure, because you can't have a kill switch in some other country. So these are becoming even more important conversations post-COVID, which is what you will see. But we have been investing. At the 10 years, we also transferred. I talked about the 50 billion subsidy regime we were doing, currently at 80 billion. Today, India runs world's largest direct cash transfer program. With 860 million people in India can receive money instantly. Trump wrote checks in the US. And some of our friends got checks. Who shouldn't be getting? I mean, Indians are rich there, okay? There's no freaking way Indians should have got a subsidy check during COVID. But they didn't know who are the right beneficiaries and how to effectively send money. We sent, at the same time during COVID, we dispatched $4.5 billion instantly to 170 million people. And then subsequently to, look at this, how many women have, and much of our bank accounts. And Finance Minister talked recently in Washington, and we were getting goosebumps. It's amazing. We opened 493 million accounts, bank accounts. Out of that, 60 to 65% is all women. Much of the money go directly. Much of the cash transfer program, not only we made it direct to women. And that's very powerful, because men, just think of it, right? It's very important. In our society, subsidies have to go to women because they're the only people who hold up the family, right? The men just, I think, drink away and just waste money. I mean, they're not pretty useless to society, frankly speaking. Okay? Yeah, but it is very, very important. So we are transferring the way who is to be empowered at the end of the day. We are also doing that. And DPI also, Digital Public Infrastructure Investment also, this is very, very, look at this. GDP grew between that and 3.58x. Tax collection grew faster than GDP. And that's music, right? Because we are now, what does it mean? We are formalizing the society. We had a large informal society going on with very, very formal society at the back. We are rapidly formalizing, because even the coconut vendor uses UPI, right? When that happens, a trickle effect is that the collections are increasing. Now, whether they are being used right, well, all that thing is, we are still a messy democracy, much to do and much to clean up. But nevertheless, it's a very, very good sign for us to have. And beauty is that's where you come in. None of this, or maybe one or two, maybe much of this, what we did, could not have been done without the entrepreneurial energy. That's the essence of it. Because we cannot expect India to go back to pre-90s, where BSNL will give you connections and Air India will fly you everywhere kind of situation, right? We've had it. We're not going back. There's no way India is going to go back there, right? That means we need to massively accelerate entrepreneurial innovation, because innovation as a means to inclusion is India's absolutely the contribution, absolute demorable contribution to the world. This is why Biden Prime Minister, statement, and yesterday Macron Prime Minister statement in France, all speaking about digital public infrastructure, because this is a means to bring inclusion and innovation. How can entrepreneurs now how can Zerodha be a Zerodha? Nitin Kamath has stood up and clearly said, without India stack, e-sign, Aadhaar, UPI, and much of the underlying digitization connectivity, I could not have existed. I could not have reimagined what I reimagined. And possibly to take SIP investment much deeper beyond the 22 million people who are already there. And same as PhonePe, or same as any other innovation that's coming through. So you are the essence of what India is going to achieve. You are the only way India is going to achieve. Let me put it that way. Government cannot solve problems for everybody. Government only has to create the playground where you can play and you can solve. And education, healthcare, agri, whether in transportation and much of that. So this is the real essence of India, is that somehow serendipitously we are in the right place, right time, and with all investment and much of accelerator work and all you guys are doing, we are going to create, we are going from 100,000 startups to million startups. Not everybody will succeed, not everybody will make money, but trying is essential for us to be able to create the best outcomes of it, right? And this is what we did, and we won't bore you through because you know this. Aadhaar was the first one of the building blocks, and we are 1.37 billion people have Aadhaar. Everybody can be digitally authenticated. The best part about it is not about so many people have Aadhaar. 60 million authentications happen every day. And roughly about half of this country uses Aadhaar every month. So that shows that it is being used. Giving is not useful, it's being used means somebody is unlocking value somewhere using Aadhaar, right? And same thing with UPI. And I'll give you one message here because everybody knows UPI here. But did you know that UPI can be also used by feature phone? Maybe you knew UPI 123, but probably you didn't know. UPI can be also used by people with no phones. And last month, UPI was used by 435 million transactions by people who have no phones. People who are walking down using their fingerprint to transfer money to their spouses or friends or families. 435 million families. That actually tells you why, if you imagine the infrastructure as an underlying rails, you can create not only innovation, you can actually create dramatic inclusion as well. And much of that transaction is done through private banking system and private banking system plus some post office. Post office also does that, right? And then we did DigiLocker and account aggregator. But DigiLocker I won't talk to you because you already know. But DigiLocker is a means. I'm not sure whether you know. It's 175 million people use DigiLocker. And the total investment into DigiLocker, that's funny, is $6 million in the last 8 years. Or 2015 we launched here, 8 years. That means government spent nothing. 6 million is round of error for India. Right? It's not even, it's like change. Nothing. But 175 million users using it to prove their credential. Now this time Finance Minister announced even small entities can actually get a DigiLocker, right? To keep their documents, trade certificate, licenses, because we have a cost of verifying these documents. Repeated cost is so high that we have to collapse it. If costs get collapsed, your startups, some of your startups who are going after farmers and SMEs, their ability to serve them will become cheaper and faster and more high trust. This is very, very key for us. But this is big. This is big. If you have not been tracking this, you should. That account aggregator is the world's first financial open data network, financial data network. Okay, that is open loop, financial data network that is kicking in. Now data protection bill is coming, so it will give you the right to own the data and right to share. And this is, so data become like money. Think of that way. Data is an asset and data is a soil on which not an oil to extract, to be extracted by someone else. That's not the notion we are going after. So this is like GDPR, but GDPR with a tech backbone. Think of it like a telecom network, for data, or exchange network. And this is completely what's called a decentralized. I'm using that word because there's no central database, there's no central entity, there's no central data store. So it's very, very privacy friendly as well. I'll skip through that, I won't bore you. And the three large transformations yet to come, coming on the way, almost at the cusp, in the next 5-6 years we should track, is credit, logistics and e-com. Okay, huge transformation that's coming. In the credit, today, much of SMEs, we are credit starved. Everybody knows we are credit starved country. Much of SMEs can't get anything. If you are in SPJIMR, you'll probably get a loan, but if you are in a local college, you can't get anything. Because there's no guarantee, right? It's pretty much you can't recover it. Doesn't make any sense to give you money. Because I think it is very difficult to prove, your reputation or your business and your income. Nothing is provable. The cost is so high, it doesn't make sense. Today we are able to do a $2 loan instantly. And imagine the cost of issuing $2 loan in a paper-based system. Collecting paper, filling up forms, coming to the branch, verifying background, checking all the authenticity. No use giving $10 loan. Because interest is not enough to collect, keep the cost down, right? But we are able to do digitally. This actually, when you sachetize, and we have seen this physical product, shampoo example. When you sachetize, it goes to a lot more people. Suddenly, instead of 50 million people, 500 million people come into the formal economy. And when they come into the formal economy and they're part of the society, same products we can access, they also pay taxes, they're part of the system, right? It's very, very key. And we are also changing, and Sujit is here, probably talk much about it. He's driving, your alumni. So he's driving backend protocol. If it's a completely an open source effort, that is driving what's called the world's first open commerce internet. Okay, think of, you have internet where content is exchanged, right? HTML pages. ONDC exchanges commerce. It's completely same picture. And this is yet to start. We are starting now. We are at what, 100,000 orders a day. So it's large in 9 months, but nevertheless, it's going to go through millions. But the real beauty is that it's going to formalize many. And initial early examples, so if you're even a researcher, you should be researching this, because early examples are unbelievable stories of a sari weaver who suddenly is earning 4 lakh on ONDC network. And self-help groups, women self-help group making pickles or products are able to now connect to this grid. And it suddenly without having a Shah Rukh Khan on an ad, I can get consumer. That's big, right? Because only so many people can put them on the ad. And this is the same thing happening in mobility, taxi booking, all that thing. Mumbai is coming. People have been asking when it's coming to Pune and all that thing. Bangalore has come. Mysore, Kochi is there, but I think it's coming soon. Calcutta is going. Yeah, it's coming, but it will come one of these days here. This is also a completely open loop taxi booking. It's not a platform. It's many platforms on a network like internet. Difficult to understand. He'll explain to you one of these days. Okay, you're a senior. But the best part is that ChatGPT. You know what ChatGPT LLMs did to us? LLMs also upgraded the ability to reach knowledge to the last mile. A conversational bot. Now imagine right now. Satya Nadella was here in January, and they launched ChatGPT a few weeks back, OpenAI, and we demonstrated what's called Jugalbandi. I don't know whether some of you saw that in the video. You can search Satya Nadella demonstrating where a farmer is asking on a WhatsApp bot or a Telegram bot in Hindi, "Humko kya milega? How much money milega? Government ka kya scheme hai?" And it is integrating with ChatGPT, integrating with farmer database to answer back in voice in Hindi back to farmer. Because until that we solve user interface problem, we will always have a layer of intermediary. Because the users, how many people can speak English, right? English speaking, not English, somehow reading. Some ability to do business in English is always limited. And imagine language becomes no more a barrier. The global business trade is going to explode. And that's going to be powerful. And we have a mission called Bhashini mission. India government has launched that has put out the entire language voice models free. So if you are integrating language into your app, it's completely available to you free. Because the hard part is data and models. And these two are actually made available through IIT Madras and Ministry of IT mission. That means the friction for innovation is being reduced dramatically for you to be able to actually deliver. And that is the real part, and this is what differentiates India. You can have a US style market, right? You can have a US style market, completely market based. No one comes in the middle. Once in a while, Lina Khan wakes up and says, okay, let's stop Microsoft acquisition, and then they're just, screw you, right? I'm not going to do it. Because it's just beautiful capitalism working there, right? It works for them. It's nothing wrong, right about it. And then you have regulatory. Europe comes after laws after laws after laws, and they don't know what to do because they hate US companies, they don't have their own companies, they don't trust the government. So, it's one of those situations they are in. But they have extremely powerful regulatory view. They're very strong. So GDPR and all came from them, right? We can see that very strongly. And then you have Chinese model, which is not here, okay? Which is all of us know, supreme. Government is supreme, it works for them beautifully, no problem. None of us can make comment what works in the long run, frankly. We believe in democracy, that's our model. and we will continue to do that. So we are taking a combination of market and regulatory and combining it with a tech backbone. So our model now studied independently at, recently there was a Harvard study, IMF study, all coming out saying what is India model? India model seemed to be fusing the best of these by giving and then opening up that playground to the entrepreneurs and saying now it's your time to combine the Lego blocks. Right? That's a very different way to approach without actually stopping it. So that's where the real combination is. Open standards or interoperability, which is what like backend, and then a governance layer like ONDC or NPCI, who is governing the UPI network, and the marketplace like GPay, PhonePe, all the FinPay, right? Some of you guys are here, and you're all trying to do a different, because India's diversity and scale necessitates hundreds of solutions. So that's what's going to happen. And this difference, we were there in pre-92, everything government doing, bad idea, slow innovation, RFP model. US is here, let leave to the market completely, and India is playing that. So the techno-legal is that you create some sort of underlying digital rails on top and reduce the friction for innovation and create the Lego blocks and give it off and to the entrepreneur. So entrepreneurs to actually able to build. And that we believe is the only way India is going to actually formalize 1 billion people into the economy and bring them along. And according to me, India has not even scratched the surface of it. The next decade is going to be so huge. If you thought UPA was big, you haven't seen it. So, but all of you have to stand up and put up your hand and boldly innovate. I suppose you guys are setting it up for it, so it'll be lovely to see that happen for India. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Verma, for that overview. Yeah. Thank you for that overview on our digital infrastructure. It's truly amazing to know the progress we've made in this space, thanks to people like you. Moving on to our next speaker this afternoon, someone who I've briefly introduced earlier in the beginning of the event, as well as has been on our social media pages over the last 3 days. A visionary leader driving business transformation, Mr. Sunil Bhatia. Welcome, sir. Mr. Bhatia is known for his accomplishments in scaling businesses backed by private equity. With his tenure as the former president and CEO of Infogame and Blue Star Infotech Limited, Sunil led the organizations to achieve phenomenal success. Under his guidance, the companies experienced exponential revenue growth, surpassing 13 times their figures. He strategically positioned Infogame as a trusted partner to Fortune 100 companies, solidifying its reputation as a top 50 engineering digital transformation services firm recognized by Everest Group. Beyond his professional pursuits, Sunil is an avid reader, a self-proclaimed golf hacker, and a sought-after speaker on new age technologies and building platform businesses. His passion for inspiring others to dream big and unlock their full potential is truly remarkable. Sunil Bhatia's visionary leadership, strategic acumen, and commitment to driving business transformation makes him a true force to reckon with in the industry. We're grateful to have you here with us today, Mr. Bhatia. A warm welcome back home. And ladies and gentlemen, one more time, Mr. Sunil Bhatia.
Thank you all. It's really a privilege and an honor to be here. And can we please give one more applause and applause? Difficult to come back and speak when they're talking about population level scale. But what I wanted to do today was, talk to each and every one of you, whether you're an entrepreneur or not an entrepreneur, but especially if you're an entrepreneur, on how do you succeed, right? And I wanted to talk about how do you become Sachin Tendulkar or Tiger Woods or LeBron James of whatever field that you have chosen for yourself. And what I mean by that is, how do you become the top 50 in your field in the world? So, everybody wants to be good, but then the question is, what is the difference between the good and great? There are enough books around, good to great. We talk about businesses becoming this thing, but what about our self journey, right? So I want to spend a few minutes today, and not hopefully take too long, but talk to you about how do you go from becoming just a good in whatever you're doing to becoming the top 50 or the top 100 in the world, right? And basically come to you and share with you my own perspective. So, look, first and foremost, no man is an island. Nothing that you do is especially going to happen by yourself. So you need a team. For me, first and foremost, I needed a partner. And by the way, the whole money that we are putting through, today I was actually very embarrassed as well because it kept saying Sunil Bhatia. But the funds which are coming are really coming from Rita and Sunil Bhatia, so that's first and foremost. and without your partner, nothing good happens in life. So the first thing that you need to solve for yourself is do you have a support of a good partner and your loved ones, right? And that is your responsibility to solve, right? So for me, having mom here, having, Vinod, my own brother, and my Bhabhi here, and, they were around for me when I used to come to India and spend, I used to be based in the US, but I was a public listed company CEO here, and I used to travel about 300 days in a year. Now, when you travel 250, 300 days in an airplane, you really need an ecosystem which help you, and without that ecosystem, it's not going to happen, right? So first and foremost, you need to, if you're going to become from good to great, you need to have a team around you which is going to ensure that you don't fall back. So that was the first learning for me. My second learning, and this is very important, everybody talks about IQ, EQ, and for me, EQ is a question about how do you go and manage yourself. And by that I mean, all of us have a finite level of energy. So, when you're 50 years old, let's assume you have 100 units of energy. When you're 21 years old, let's assume you have 200 units of energy. And when you become 80 years old, let's say you have 25 units of energy. Your job is to ensure that your energy levels is the highest within whichever cohort you are in. So if you're 50 years old, if everybody else is 100 units, your job is to ensure that you get 125 units of energy. And the second part of that is don't waste your energy. Now, not wasting your self-energy is a very hard part. When I look at around all my friends and if I look at all the people that I work with, my whole point to most of them is don't waste your energy. And how do you waste your energy? You waste your energy clearly by doing things which are not supposed to do, unproductive stuff. But everybody understands that. But like if you think negatively about things, or you think negatively about people, or you think small about somebody else, you will waste your energy. So my challenge to you is to think through, you do your own energy audit. And it's very important. Remember, we're trying to talk about difference between the best and the best. Everybody, like if I look at, like, for example, golfers, right? The top 100 golfers, the difference between the skill is, you can't even make it out. The difference between a Sachin Tendulkar and the next top 100 batsmen in the world by themselves is not that much, but it's the mind and what do they do about it that makes a difference. So not wasting your energy is a very, very important component. And it's a long chapter on how do you manage self and how do you do this thing. Today is not a discussion, but I just want to lay out a framework for you to think through and maybe go back and reflect on yourself by doing your own energy audit and seeing, are you using your energy wisely, or are you wasting your energy in some form? You won't even realize that you're wasting your energy, right? So that's my second point for you to think through. My third point is, and I genuinely believe this, your thoughts define who you are. You will become as you think. So if you think small, you will become small. Right? The question is, can you really think big? Can you think big? Can you think bold? Can you think fast? Can you imagine yourself in a very, very different scale, especially for entrepreneurs who are now trying to launch something? try and visualize as big and as bold and as far as you can, right? And obviously, I mean, there's this saying, right? Happy are those who dream dreams and are ready to pay the price to make them come true, right? So today you see me standing here, very successful, all very nice in this thing, but as they say in Hindi, right? बहुत पापड़ बेलने पड़ते हैं यार, right? So so you have to do that, right? And the second part of this thing is the thought is, again, for those of you who understand Hindi, खुद ही के ऊपर बुलंद इतना कि खुदा भी बंदे से पूछे बता तेरी रजा क्या है. So that it all starts with your mind, right? So you have to start thinking through that. When we started, the journey that we started, and I'm going to say Rita and I was running 11 countries for IBM, right? Now to leave all of that, running 11 countries and getting paid handsomely in Singapore, right? We had a house of our own, which is worth at that point of time $5 million. We have a house, we had some money in the bank, I'm a big executive. Now to leave all of that and say, nahi yaar, kuch karna hai life mein, right? Leave all of that and then go and say, I'll go to Palo Alto, because that's where it'll happen. I couldn't do it out of Singapore. I tried to do it in India. I just couldn't. And hopefully, the future entrepreneurs, this will all help to future entrepreneurs. But the point was that we sat down and we thought about it and we said, okay, we'll leave the clutches of everything that we have as a security and then go and do something which is completely different. So the whole, again, it starts with your mind and you thought that you will become successful. And, and when we went there and life was hard, right? I went on 1/3 of my salary of IBM and I joined this company called Satyam and ran a large business. In first year, Satyam blew up in my face. And instead of running away, Rita and I said, look, we have enough money of our own. We will stay in Satyam and help people who are there. And then I joined Accenture, finished that, and then came and did the whole entrepreneurial journey from there, right? But the point is, you have to visualize and you have to think. If you don't do that, nothing good will happen to you, right? My fourth point is be a learning machine in a machine learning age. Machines are learning. You better learn yourself as well, right? You really, really need to be. Now the question is, when you say you have to be a learning machine, what does it mean? So the learning machine means, at any point of time, all of us have multiple desires, right? Remember, I'm trying to give you a framework which has worked for me. It may or may not work for you, but I'm just trying to share my perspective on the subject from becoming good to great yourself, right? So learning machine means, all of us have 50 desires, right? I mean, I'm in my own head, yes, so I've solved for money now, right? Fine, so money is being solved, great. Now I'm trying to solve for how can I come and help the future entrepreneurs to become good, better, at best at what they can do, right? Rita and I are trying to solve for how can education make an impact in the world, right? We're also trying to solve for how do we get old people in the world to acclimatize better, especially old people who are being not digitally savvy. How can now we get technology to get the old people to use technology so that they can become more relevant, right? Because health spans are increasing. No more 70 is old. People are going to live till 80, 85, 90. But if you get technologically led behind, then we are both trying to sit down and say, okay, how do we now help them? So everybody has multiple desires, right? So that's the point I'm trying to make now. And when you want to become a learning machine, today we are trying to learn to see, can artificial intelligence help? So one of my things my pet projects currently I'm researching on is, can I now use technology, especially AI, and hopefully Pramod and Sujit and all at some point help me. Can I now come to India or Africa or wherever else it is? There are millions of people who are, probably on their phone or on the iPad or access to a computer, whatever it is. Can I now use that labor, using AI and everything else, to come and help solve the world's problem? And for profit. And therefore, then the money can go back all the way back to. So I was very, very excited when I saw what they are doing and what India has achieved. So now to be a learning machine, all my reading and everything else I'm doing is to try and solve these multiple desires that I have, whether it's a desire on the health, whether it's a desire to create something else, or it's a desire to come and help the entrepreneurs, whatever it is, right? So if you want to become a little different than everybody else, or you want to be in the top 50, again you have to be the the learning machine. And my last point, and my most important learning, when my daughter was turning 21, I wrote a book, from Father's Life Lessons to Your Daughter. And I'm not sure how much the book helped her. It probably helped her a little bit, but it helped me a lot. What it did for me is help me to codify points about my own life, reflect on it and codify it in a way in which to say, okay, what does it take to succeed? And frankly, in the last 7-8 years, a lot of that learning which I did at that particular point in time helped me to become a lot more successful today than it did for them. Right? So one of the things which came out for me is this formula, and I use this formula quite a bit. So the formula is called 2H, 4E, and 2P. So what does the 2H mean? So the first H is you have to be happy. So, and happy in the sense you have to be happy from inside, right? If you are not happy from inside, if you're not happy with yourself, very, very difficult to really succeed is my view. Dukhi atma bahut dur nahi jati hai yaar. Right? So you have to be happy from inside, very, very important in everything. Now everybody has, dukh in life, everybody has dark days, this, that, whatever it is, right? So, but try and figure out what is it that makes you happy from inside and become happiness in your core, right? So that's my first thing. My second H is honesty. If you're not an honest person, in my view, you die inside every day, right? Kapat karoge, chori karoge, chota ka chota hi rehne wala hai, right? Forget, and by I don't mean that you're going to become, you may make some money, don't get me wrong, there are enough corrupt people who will make some money, right? But I don't know how long you will last from that perspective and how long it will go, right? So to me, the 2H's, you have to be happy from your core and you have to be honest, right? Again, this is the formula which works for me, may or may not work for you, right? What is the 4E? My first E is you have to have energy. Remember I talked about energy audit, managing else, but having your own energy is very important, right? Now, all of us, whether we know it or not, we transfer energy to each other. We are all energy, right? We all know we have trillions of cells which are vibrating. That's what the human body is about. Science has now proven that we are energy. When we die, nothing happens. The form of energy transforms. We understand all that. Basic physics, everybody gets it, I'm sure, right? So if you are all energy, then the question is, can you maintain your energy levels at a very, very high peak, right? And that is, again, the difference between the good and the great. So that's my first E is have a high energy. Second is, okay, you have energy, yeah, great, but can you energize others? We're in SPJIMR, professors usually come and teach. They are usually happy people, honest people, they have high energy and they energize their students, right? So I'm, in whatever field you are in, whether you're a leader, you're this thing, whoever is around you, can you energize others or not, right? That's a very important part of that second energy, right? The third part is of E is, are you a master in something? Do you have an edge, right? So you can have all the energy in the world, but if you don't have a mastery in anything, thoda problem hai yaar, right? So the learning machine is a very important part of making sure that you have an edge in something. Doesn't matter what that edge is in, but in something you have to be the best that you can be at. Right? And the fourth is, can you execute? Manoj talked about it took him 4-6 months to come and execute something like that. That's phenomenal, world-class standard, yeah, to execute in that short a time. That's fantastic success, right? Now, can you execute? So that's your 4 E's, right? Energy, yourself, energize others, edge, and having the ability to execute on that promise. My 2 P's are, and the 2 P's is as follows, right? First is you have to be passionate. Especially if you are becoming an entrepreneur. If you are not passionate about it, thanda hai, dheela hai, abhi mat kare yaar. Don't waste your time, don't waste your energy, nahi hone wala hai. Right? These journeys are extremely hard journeys. There are a lot more dark days than good days. And if you don't have a passion, problem hai. So have a passion into something else, right? And especially if you want to become Sachin Tendulkar of your sport, you better be passionate. Yeah. That guy used to practice 1,000 hours. Yeah. Right? He used to put that, everybody knows the string, right? He used to put a string and take a ball and he used to keep batting in the night, right? Same thing with Tiger Woods. When he was 2 years old, he used to put tapes in his head and listen to Jack Nicklaus talk and then sleep. So these are hard things. You have to be passionate about whatever you're doing, right? And my last is on P, is about perseverance. If you cannot persevere, you're going to fall down 100 times. You have to learn to persevere, right? If you do not persevere, you'll have a challenge. So the 2 H's again, happy, be honest, have all the energy in the world, learn to give energy to others, have an edge, execute, passionate and perseverance. Hopefully, these are things which I found. I'll just quote with, I heard something, let me see if I can fully remember that. It's a Hindi quote somebody told me, but I thought it was beautiful and probably relates to the happiness. It said, what was the point? हर जज्बात को अल्फाज नहीं मिलते, हर जज्बात को अल्फाज नहीं मिलते, हर ख्वाहिशों को दुआ नहीं मिलती, हर ख्वाहिशों को दुआ नहीं मिलती, हंस ले मेरे दोस्त तो दुनिया तेरे साथ है, वरना आंसुओं को भी आंखों में पनाह नहीं मिलती.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bhatia. So we've now had 2 such amazing insights from fantastic speakers, Dr. Verma as well as Mr. Bhatia. And I'm sure some of the members in the audience would have some questions for the both of them. And we do have some time slated for a few questions. So may I request those who have questions to raise their hand and the team to please help them with the mics. Yeah, there at the back.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Ojas. I would first like to ask Mr. Verma a question. Hi, I'm here. Yeah. So I've been following ONDC for the last couple of years. I just want to understand from you what is innate for the common man. What is, if I ask you for your vision with ONDC, I understand how grand it could be. But do you think it can take on the likes of, the Zomatos of the world who have spent $1 billion on customer acquisition? And how do you see that shaping up? Because I read that, ONDC has just raised about 180 crores in the past. So do you think ONDC as a platform, or as a interface, as a
network?
Yeah, as a network, can it really take on with the giants of the world? Or India?
Yeah, they don't have to take on the giants. Giants will join the network.
Yeah, but
I think that's an easy way, right? NPCI doesn't need to have that much of money to get PhonePays and Paytms and SGFCs and SBIs to join. It's an incentive alignment issue. You have to find the right incentive. You're right. And when will they join? It's a good question. Will Swiggy or Zomato join the network? They don't need to. But my gut feel is that, it's a question he was asking. My gut feel is that when the network expands like internet, largest of the platforms will play in because they can expand it's an additional revenue stream for them. They can continue to have their app, but if they can get 2x more orders on the other side, why would they leave it on the table for someone else to take it?
just a follow-up question on that.
So the subtlety is that ONDC is not a platform. ONDC is like internet. Platforms remain Swiggy's of the world. But now the advantage is that Swiggy alone cannot monopolize the market, and restaurants don't have to be the subservient to Swiggy's or Zomato's of the world. You can start one and you can connect it without, you can give a run for the money without having another $1 billion. And that might be very, very useful to bring diversity and scale. to the mix. If you really have to go to 1 billion people and all the businesses to come together, you will need lot more entrepreneurs. You can't have just one company doing it for the country. It's like saying Paytm will solve our financial inclusion problem. It doesn't, it's just hard, it doesn't work, and it's systemic risk.
Okay. And from the customer's point of view, when does the customer, transition from these individual apps to the entire network? How
No,
do you
they
see
don't
that
need
happen?
to. They'll remain in individual app. Individual app will be behind the scene connected to ONDC. You won't know. You won't even know.
So there's no separate app that ONDC is going to have?
No. It's the same app you are used to. Google Maps or PhonePe or Paytms. And new apps. Look, again, there goes back to the same question. Can new apps give a run for the money? Can they play in? Good questions to ask, but consumers may not realize the difference. And that's why sometimes the whole discussion about is ONDC food delivery cheaper than Swiggy is basically missing the whole point. That's not the point at all. I mean, Swiggy might be cheaper, it's good. I'll take cheap, sure. If they give me some discount, why would I not take it as a consumer? But they won't know. And you will never have universality with one platform. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Verma, and thank you, Ojas, for your questions as well as the follow-up questions. Second question, yes, please.
This question is to anyone who's interested in answering the question. My question is, how does one choose their niche? How does one decide where to spend the energy? Like once you, anyone can answer the question. How does one decide their niche? Because there are so many things to invest your time and energy in. So, how does one decide where to spend their time and energy?
So, the question to ask is, what excites you, right? And what is it that gets you up in the morning, that gets you passionate about it? Because you're going to employ your energy onto those activities. You're never going to employ your activities or something. If you have, let's say, 5 things to choose from, what are you going to choose? Do you want to play cricket? Do you want to play golf? Do you want to play tennis? Do you want to play table tennis? What is it that you want to play? There's one sport which is probably going to excite you more than the others. And whatever excites you more, I would say just go for that, right? So that is the first way to think about it. Then the question, then the frameworks are about, is it hard, not hard? Is it crowded, not crowded? Those are, I think, easier answers to get to, because there is a framework around which you can solve that. Right? I mean, there are, if you're studying an industry, for example, there's a 5 forces framework, there's a value network. I mean, there are enough frameworks which will answer all of this for you. So to me, that's a very simple part, right? So, and that's what I was trying to tell you as well, right? There are 2 levels at which you think. At a base level, we all think of, Michael's, 5 forces analysis, or Michael Porter's 5 forces analysis, or whatever else it is, right? But these are things which have been answered. These are very easy things to answer, right? I mean, within given time and energy, you can answer it, right? But now to take it to the next level where you can become passionate and can become the top this thing, that's, I think you need to apply yourself and think through what passionates and what drives you from that perspective.
How did you find your niche?
How did I find my own niche? With a lot of difficulty. And no, so it's also a process of trial and error, right? So, I was trying to explain it at the lunch, but let me just take two seconds to stab at it. So I first thought I will put up a payment gateway in India, but this was 2003. It was really way ahead of its time. Then I said, okay, then I'll put a credit card processing system, again very early. As I put 2005, I thought I'll put 10,000 ATMs in India, very early. What I should have done is come here and open a school, or I should have opened a diagnostic center. I kid you not. In 2005, if I'd opened a diagnostic center, I probably would have, from a money perspective, definitely a lot more money. Right? So if you're just trying to solve for money, you would have solved it very easily. But that was not my passion. That didn't excite me or anything like that. My passion was to use technology to come and help and solve. And then I said, okay, I'll go to Palo Alto. That's the whole challenge, right? Took a risk of leaving IBM and going to Palo Alto and saying this is in California, and then trying to say how to do it, right? So hopefully that helps.
Thank you. So we have time for one more question. There? Yeah.
Hi, this is Sunil Khosla. The question is from Mr. Sunil Bhatia. First of all, I think a wonderful speech. So this is like, why is social impact programs or innovation need to hide behind the veil of not-for-profit? So why are there not too many things related to genuine social impact innovations? And is the government also doing enough linked to that or not? So, for example, do we have any incubator or accelerator who are genuinely helping the tribals in India or anyone? So that's my point, that where is the country going in terms of genuinely impacting the society? I understand that money is important, but do we have something coming up right from the grassroots where the social impact will help those 1.4 billion people? Today, as we speak, my 13-year-old daughter went to a school as one of her internship project in the school, to one of the smaller schools, and taught those kids. I felt very happy. It was not money, but I felt very happy. So where is this social impact going? I thought I'll ask you.
So I'll take that question into two parts. And the second question Pramod can answer, because it was on the impact. I think the impact that they are doing is at a much different scale, right? See, on the first part, I don't think anybody needs to hide behind for-profit or not-for-profit. There are avenues in which both are making an impact. I think what UPI started was it's for not-for-profit, right? What the OND is trying to do, it's a not-for-profit, right? So that they are just, and similarly for-profit, right? There are many entities which are doing phenomenal work for-profit, whether they are accelerators or otherwise, right? I mean, let's put Manoj on the spot. One of the things I wanted to put up for accelerator, there's one data point for-profit accelerator in the US called Y Combinator. And the data point there is that if you entered that Y Combinator as an entrepreneur, you had 60% chance that you will be worth $10 million at the end of it. Like in 10 years time, you will be worth $10 million. So 6 out of 10 cohort people in that will be worth $10 million. Now it's a for-profit this thing. So I don't think nobody needs to hide behind, whether it's profit or non-profit. Now from an impact perspective, I think the impact, my God, all his presentation was about impact, right? This is a not-for-profit and the impact that they are doing. I mean, even if we can pull off, they've already pulled off miracles already in my mind, but if he's saying picture abhi baki hai, that's exactly what he said, in terms of e-commerce, logistics and everything else, man, we better watch what that picture is all about. So I would say that is fantastic. I think we are waiting for Nandini to speak, so I think we should wrap it up and probably.
So, thank you so much once again for all of your questions, and sorry if you could not, have questions put up right now. You can probably try and interact during the high tea. So our next speaker, Ms. Nandini Mansinka, CEO Mumbai Angels, is one of the key architects of venture investing in India. Nandini started her entrepreneurial journey back in 2010, simultaneously building startups and investing in them, before jumping headlong into building Mumbai Angels into a force to reckon with. As an angel investor, Nandini has a portfolio of 80 plus companies and intends to keep investing in startups for the next several decades. She has had a long stint across banking, strategy, and media in her 12 plus years with JP Morgan and the Times of India Group. Welcome to SPJIMR, Ms. Mansinka. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause.
Hi, am I audible? Yes. Hi, I think it's always a very tough act to follow with two fabulous speakers. What I'm going to do here is try to give you a very different perspective from what the other two speakers spoke about. So one, of course, spoke to you about the entire possibility that is India. And Sunil, of course, spoke about, what does it take to become, an entrepreneur and do well. My job actually, and I've done this now for about 15 odd years, is look at it from a very different perspective. I'm an angel investor. Okay? What does an angel investor do? An angel investor, and you know, I started getting this question when I just started out in 2010 on saying, why are you called an angel investor? Does somebody just want to take a crack at that thing on saying, what is the meaning of an angel investor? Yep. Just, I think you can use it without the mic.
Yes, sir. My name is Himanshu, and I think that an angel investor is someone who believes on an idea which is not yet took a physical shape.
Absolutely. So you come in much before anybody else does. Right? When I started out, I was asked, do you do this for investing money? Do you want profit? Because the expectation at that point was that if you were coming in early, you should be doing it for impact, not looking for profitability. If you just cut that from 2010 to today, of course, it has become a dramatically different landscape, right? Everybody understands that an angel investor walks in when nobody else is willing to give you money, right? So, you know, what is the journey of an entrepreneur? You start out with your niche, you start out with your passion, you start out with what you understand. And the first round of money actually comes in from the first 3 F's. Friends, family, fools. Yeah? I actually add a 4th F, father-in-law, which I think is more akin to the 3rd F. Yeah? The whole idea over there is that these are the people who are coming in and they're not necessarily worried whether you are going to succeed or not. They're saying, go do what you think you want to, go follow your passion, we are standing behind you. Okay? Once that money runs out, and in India, I think that number is anywhere between, earlier it was some 10 lakhs, but now I think depending on which industry you are in, etc., I would say anywhere between 50 lakhs to 1 crore is where most startup founders will put in their first money. That is where, you know, actually what starts is called the valley of death. So what is the valley of death? That is the time when a startup has enough traction, has done the first few sales, has the first few believers, but then they start doing these rounds with the funds and, you know, more organized money, and they will always come back and tell you, look, we like what you're doing, but guess what, you need a little more traction. Like, say, for example, if you are in, you know, fintech, if in this room, they will say, do you have your first few customers? If you're trying to do a direct to, you know, D2C, do you have the first 10 lakhs of revenue? Those things. I know all of you would have heard that number, but just some guess on what is the percentage of startups starting out and, you know, not being able to make the value of death? Any guesses in the room? 90%, right? So that's the number. 90% of startups are not being able to raise enough money to be able to last through that valley of death. And it is not because they are not good ideas. It's because there isn't enough money, not enough structured money to be able to ride people through. And that is where, you know, individuals come in, and that is why they call angel investors. They come in and they say, listen, we are the first external people who are going to come in and start working with you before the funds and the corporates and the other structured money starts flowing in. Okay, so that's what we do. 2 terms. So when you hear Mumbai Angels, right? Mumbai Angels, just some statistics. We are about 250 strong portfolio companies that we've built over, say, the last 15 years. 100 of them have seen what is called exits, next rounds, etc. While I don't think it is all purely about numbers, but if somebody had invested in all the companies from day 1 to today, they would have made a composite IRR of about 37%. That's the beauty of investing in startups all in the beginning, right? So when you hear about Mumbai Angels, you think of two terms, right? You think of startups and you think of angels. I'm here to tell you that both these terms are actually outdated. Yeah? They are no longer relevant to what we are doing today. And why is that happening? Because in a very good way, I think we are today in India, you're sitting right at the cusp of what I would call the perfect storm. You're in the true age of abundance, where over the next 15 to 20 years is the golden age of building new businesses. You're going to notice I'm not calling it a startup. I think this term startup is an import we actually got from Silicon Valley. We in India have always been a startup nation, if you think. Yeah, we have always built businesses. The only difference between what is happening today versus what was happening 15 years back is that you could only do this if you came from a business family. That has what has changed. The type of money that has started coming in has changed. But we have always done this. So I, for one, am not a big believer of, calling, and you can't actually, this, while numbers look very good on saying so many startups, etc., these are actually just new businesses. Any company that is actually listed started out at some point. Okay, it's just the journey of how long it has taken. It has taken 10 years, 15 years. And in India, the reality is that we take longer than other countries. And I'm hoping, that number will start reducing. But for us to be able to become a sizable number, again, by the way, I hate the term unicorn. I think it is a complete Shah Rukh Khan effect. Yeah? And what it actually does is it actually undermines the hard work that thousands of entrepreneurs are putting in building businesses from ground up to decent sized businesses. Yeah? So we've always been a startup nation. We will cut. What has just started happening now is that our pace of building new ventures have increased dramatically, and you're going to see a dramatic increase over the next 10 to 15 years. So all of you who are in this room who are wanting to start out, this is the perfect time to do it. Okay? So that is number one. The second is, and that's the part that I represent actually, that look, we keep talking about startups and innovation, etc. What we need to realize is that the other side of the coin is money. Until you have the right amount of money, you will not be able to grow the companies. So if you look at other economies, so if you will look at the more advanced, say the US, UK, China, we don't have enough data, but this thing, the investment that happens is a pyramid. The largest number of companies will get funded at the what we call angel or individual stage. They will die out. Then next level funding will come. Next level. In India, actually, thankfully now it's not just a reverse pyramid, but the number of people who can actually say I invest in early stage is dramatically low for the kind of population that we have. Dramatically low for the number of people who are coming up as millionaires in the country, right? So, for example, if I looked at us and look at some other peer platforms who do similar stuff like that, everything combined, we would maybe say we are 20,000 people. It's nothing. You need to have minimum over the next 3 to 4 years, 10 times these numbers of people who are saying, I'm going to invest in early stage. Okay, so how does that happen? Now, what are we trying to do? So let's just understand that, if I said in a way that, say the India, let's just call it an early stage venture. So we actually look at it as an early stage venture, okay? If you're at the hockey stick, you're right here. What are the 3 or 4 things that we are trying to do as a platform to make sure that you actually have 10 times more people doing this, right? And the term that I actually, follow through and I'm like very, very passionate is about templatizing. So two or three things. You have to templatize and you have to make it into sachets. I think we spoke about, so investment in sachets, investment in templates. That is what we're doing. So if you ask me saying that there are 2 or 3, so I'm now going to spend, just a couple of minutes on both sides on saying, for an investor in early stage venture, what are the 3-4 template points? And I say this in all forums that are there, and I'm hoping more and more people actually understand that investing in early stage venture is not about unicorn hunting. This is not about going out there, meeting 10 people and saying, I can identify a winner. Now I've done this for about, like I said, 15 years. I would have individually seen about 10,000 companies. Today, my confidence level on saying I can meet 10 people and say which one is going to be the winner is much lesser than what it was 5 years back. And it's after I've lost my own hard-earned money. Yeah. So how does that work? So there are 3 or 4 things, right? First is, you have to understand that this is not unicorn hunting, this is an asset class. Like I mentioned early on, startups is a term, it's a very sexy term. It's very good for, conferences. It's very good for Shark Tank. It's very good for conversation. It's not good for investing. If you are walking into this, you have to look at it as an asset class. And that asset class, as we see it, is early stage venture. Why do I say early stage venture? For most of you in the room, you would say, oh, Zomato is a startup. For us, Zomato is a giant. Because we have seen Zomato go through its early ability to, ask for 2 crores to where it is today. So we come in where a company is wanting to raise anywhere between 2 to 10 crores. So that is why it's absolutely early stage. So it's an asset class, number one. Secondly, the minute you look at it as an asset class, as an investor, you have to deliberately go out there and do portfolio allocation. And I understand it's not a very popular thing to do. You'll be like, why should I do asset allocation? Let me go and identify 5, startups and go and put all my money there. No. You have to decide on saying, how much % of my overall money am I actually going to put out there? And my recommendation, and is saying, it has to be in low single digits if you're doing other things. Like say for somebody like me, my money about say 15 to 20% would be in early stage venture, not more than that. And that's when I do this full time. Yeah? So you'll have to put that money out. Third is, just like you do portfolio allocation anywhere else, you have to diversify. You will have to put money in our, and we've seen this data over the last 15 years or so, minimum 30 to 50 companies. Anything less, you are risking your capital. So you have to go out there and put money in, say, 30 to 50 companies. Okay. Fourth, you have to understand what is the risk associated with this. You cannot put that money that for any reason you're going to lose sleep. Because this is extremely risky, where your capital can go down to 0. So if you understand these 4 things, you have to go out there. And the other part that I talk of is, each one of us in this room should look at investing a part of our overall capital in early stage venture. Start small, but be methodical. Go out there, be patient, and do this when you fully understand the risk associated with it. That's what we are driving as a platform, to say, through these 3-4 things, how can we actually grow the base of investors in the country into this asset class? Okay, so that's the investor side of it. On the entrepreneur side of it, I want to talk about 3 or 4 things, and it has actually started, I've started spending a lot more of my time and thinking on this over the last couple of years. Because I think we are, what I would say, in our teenage in the startup ecosystem in the country. Which means this is the right time to put in the right systems and processes in place. And that has to be driven from the entrepreneur. What does it mean? Number one, and it will sound very strange because it's coming from me, don't raise money till you really need it. Understand, raising money is not something that you talk to friends with. You don't build businesses to raise money. You don't build businesses for valuation. So, a lot of times you talk to people saying, oh, why are you building this? Because I want to have this valuation. The starting point is not valuation. Starting point is not raising money. Just because money is more easily available than it was 15 years back doesn't mean the hard work of building businesses has gone down. It has just become more structured. Okay? That's number one template. Make sure that you're only raising money when you really need it. Secondly, understand that when you are raising money, you are getting somebody with a voice on the table. Increasingly, what we are seeing that a lot of entrepreneurs who raise money with us or elsewhere, they don't understand the risk and the liability that they are taking up. An investor is not somebody who's going to cut a check and walk away. An investor is there because A, they think that you need the money. B, because they think that you're going to manage their money carefully. And C, that you understand that you are answerable and responsible to them. Why I'm saying this and I'm bringing this out, and like I said, we are seeing this as an increasing incidence in our portfolio, and of course a lot of you are reading about this and you're hearing this in the larger ecosystem. I think we in India are at that juncture where we can decide whether we want to go the IT way and become super structured, okay, and actually become world global standards on how an industry should be run. Or we could go the way where we are just trying to chase growth without any structures around it. And that, I think, is going to become a disaster. Because then suddenly you will be 3-4 years from now where as more and more corporate governance questions start coming in, as more and more founder intent questions start coming in, founder non-answerability questions start coming in, chasing of growth at any cost questions start coming in, you will start having a negative effect on how the industry will grow. So as founders, one of the first questions that you will have to ask, and I think that is why an accelerator like we're putting together is so important, is that it's not just about understanding how to do business and how to grow, etc. You need to know from day one how to put the corporate governance in place. What is important? Getting that, 3-4 board members, getting those 3-4 advisors, understanding how to, so if you ask me saying, okay, in your portfolio, which are the founders that have done well? Those are the founders who understood the responsibility of A, taking money, and B, keeping their investors completely involved at any given point of time. So building your company is not just about the excitement, it has to be. But a lot of it has to come with corporate governance and the responsibility that you understand as you start raising more and more structured money in the future. Yeah, so these were just 3-4 things that I wanted to say. Just wanted to conclude by saying, I think, like I mentioned, we are in the true age of abundance. Yeah, we are looking at ourselves becoming a 5 trillion economy in the next couple of years. My bet is that a large part of that will be contributed by companies that are not even born today. Thank you. Are we taking questions?
Yeah, sure. Any questions for Ms. Matsinka?
Yep, please.
How do you identify startup
Sorry, I'm back.
How do we identify startups that are early stage? Like for you, it's probably easier because they come to you. But if we are an investor, if we don't have that much amount of money, obviously they won't come to us. So how do we identify who to invest in?
So I think
But most of
primarily.
them are not listed. My question
Yes, yes. So look, I think you need to work with platforms like ours. The one thing that I will mention is that if you're starting your investing journey, you know, it's very tempting to create a investment club with 10 friends and say, let's look at companies and see. It's a short way of losing money. Yeah. You have to see enough number of companies for you to be able to say yes. So like say for example, for us, we see about 500 to 600 startups a month. Unless you create that mechanism to see so many companies on your own, you will always have what is called selection bias, which basically means that you will have to choose from a subset of companies that apply to you or you have found out. So if you will invest in 10, look at 10 and invest in one, your selection ratio is 10%. It has to be 1%. So if initially you have to go through, and it's not a plug for us, any platform, yeah, but don't start your journey on your own.
Thank you so much for that question. Anyone else? Yeah. Oh, there's one question.
Do we have time?
Yeah, we have time for a couple of quick questions.
So as you said, you evaluate around 500, 600 startups every month. What is, criteria where you said, I'm not going to invest in this?
Yes. Right. Very good question. We actually have what I look at as the level 1 of an algorithm in place. So it is, we are looking at almost about 100 different parameters, right? And through those parameters, and it's still level 1, we will see, but through that, we actually, eliminate up to 80% companies at stage 1 itself. So if you are asking me specifically what, I will not be able to give you.
Secret sauce.
No, not secret. I think it will depend on every different company, every company in its own. So like say for example, we might eliminate company A for something completely different. Company B. But if you're asking me for a couple of very top of the mind this thing, I will not invest in a part-time founder.
Got it. Right, certain weight parameters like...
Absolutely. And some of them we would be like, no, this doesn't work for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we had one more question coming from here. That's the last question for this. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes.
Hello ma'am, Antriksh this side.
Yes,
so I had a question about the recent conversation that happened between Mr. Altman and our own Mr. Mahindra sir, whereby Mr. Altman mentioned that India is never going to be making another AI or can never innovate in that field. Yeah. How do you feel about that, and do you have any interesting startups in your portfolio or you can see them innovating in this direction?
See, I don't think they are wrong. No? I think what happens in India is, especially on the tech side of it, we are very lazy. We want to do Me Too products. We want to quickly copy what is happening elsewhere. So if you ask me, I'm not seeing, till now I've not seen any dramatically, world-changing AI startups that have come to us. We haven't seen world-changing. Firstly, I don't understand what the term Web 3.0 means only. So if you ask me, I don't know. But if I look at say blockchain or anything which is, I think we need to do a lot more hard work to do this. B, maybe the opportunity for India is not to try and do what is working elsewhere. You already have so many opportunities and challenges to grow the Indian economy. So for example, if something is happening and you can build a derivative AI product, and which is answering an India problem, that I think is a higher probability of working. I don't think we should try and see, okay, what is working over there, can we do a similar thing? Not needed. There is enough opportunity that is going on over here. Having said that, I don't think any individual in this world today really knows what's going to happen in the next couple of years. And we as an economy, as entrepreneurs, as investors, are known to surprise ourselves again and again. So you might find something newer coming up, but as of now, I have not seen anything that's dramatic. It's mostly, you know, incremental, trying to do a top up on what is happening.
1 to n rather than a 0 to 1.
Sorry, I couldn't.
More of 1 to n rather than a 0 to 1 that
Exactly. But it's maybe because, you know, let's not try and copy. That's the problem. We shouldn't try and copy. We should try and see what is the specific situation that you want to solve and then go off, you know, for it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those very important insights, Ms. Mansinka. I'm sure all of our participants as well. And for those of you who missed this earlier, Mumbai Angels is also one of our key partners for the Finnovate Accelerator. So thank you for your trust in us there as well. Next up, we will have Dr. Varun Nagraj, SPJIMR's very own dynamic dean, taking the center stage. While our participants in the audience are now capable of doing a thesis on Dr. Nagraj's professional experience, for our guests here in the audience, let me give you a quick overview. Dr. Nagraj holds a PhD in Management, Designing Sustainable Systems from Case Western Reserve University's Weatherhead School of Management. He also holds an MBA from Boston University, an MS in Computer Engineering from North Carolina State University, and a BTech in Electrical Engineering from IIT Bombay. His career spanning over 3 decades in digital products reflects his passion for product management, development, and innovation. He's held senior leadership roles including C-level responsibilities for venture-funded startups as well as public companies in the States. So he has also previously taught at the University of Notre Dame, Pepperdine University, and Boston University. Over to you, sir.
So today is a day of innovation and a day for entrepreneurship. And both innovation and entrepreneurship are about taking risk. So the risk-free approach for me today would be to be, you know, the Dean of SPJIMR and sort of give you some wise words about innovation for inclusion and how ONDC and the rest of the India tech stack are actually exemplars of something that I, as an academic, you know, firmly believe in, which is innovation should be done for a larger purpose. But that would be a risk-free way that I can pull it off in my sleeve, right? So today, I'm going to try something more risky. So as I was listening to the talks, I sort of said, all right, you know, there's a part of me, you know, I enjoy being the dean here and all that, all right? So don't get me wrong. But there's a part of me, you know, that sort of misses my Silicon Valley life, if you will. There's a part of me that's always thinking, what would I do as an entrepreneur? And so today, as I was looking at, you know, I've been thinking about ChatGPT and I've been thinking about AI a lot from an academic perspective because I'm not totally convinced it's good for society, as many others are. On the other hand, from an entrepreneurial point of view, it does represent a fair number of opportunities that one could exploit. And given this is a fintech conference and given we're talking about Finnovate, I sort of said, all right, you know, if I were an entrepreneur, how might I take ChatGPT and apply it in fintech? All right? Specifically, not ChatGPT, how would you take generative AI and apply it in fintech? And then specifically, as Nandini was saying, you know, how might I apply it for fintech in India? So these are some idle thoughts. They're risky thoughts because they probably, you know, half of them could be totally wrong since, you know, I was just thinking of it recently. But I think I want everybody here to say that entrepreneurship is about taking a chance, right? It is about trying to put something out there, stress testing it and seeing if that particular idea works or not. So let me share my not so well-founded ideas with you. So what is generative AI? Right? Generative AI simply means it is artificial intelligence that's capable of generating new things. That's what the word generative comes from. What does this AI generate? This AI can generate visuals and pictures, right? So you can look at AI generating Picasso-like art or things that frankly are indistinguishable from what experts do. So that's a little scary. Generative AI can generate audio. You know, my son is a musician. But there's AI-generated music that, you know, I have to say, sounds a little better than what he puts out himself. Then you can have generative AI that generates text. And I'm sure many of my students here have used it to generate text of their own for various submissions and so on. You can have generative AI that generates various other things, right? You can have it basically generate code, for example, right? You can write software code through generative AI interfaces, and generative AI has ways or user interfaces of interacting with it to have it generate what it is you want it to generate, right? So that's what generative AI is. And large language models are obviously a key part or one technique through which generative AI generates what it does. Now, how is generative AI being used in the finance industry today? And so there are three sort of application areas, at least, that it's being used in. And I want to talk to you about what the India extensions could possibly be. Again, talking about Sam Altman's thing, I do agree with Nandini to a certain extent. I don't think we should compare ourselves necessarily. There's a lot of AI that requires computation, power, and scale of having 100,000 NVIDIA cores that are out there doing something, and we just don't have that kind of capability to be sitting and competing with OpenAI and so forth, and nor should we try. There are ways of basically, in judo, you take your opponent's strength and play it against them, and you should be doing the same thing in business as well. So let's talk about how we might extend it. So the first application of generative AI is what's called conversational finance. And you can imagine how generative AI could help in customer support issues through a voice assistant or a chatbot, where it actually figures out what the right things that are to say. And one of our 12 startups today, or early stage ventures today, Nandini, that are in the accelerator, is in fact using it to improve the customer support experience. So conversational finance is one that can absolutely be enhanced by a well-behaved generative AI, I might add, as opposed to one that goes rogue. Now, what might the India extension be? Dr. Pramod Verma talked about how do you reach those that perhaps don't have access to the English language? How do you basically include people in the economy? And one of the projects within the India tech stack is basically a voice assistant called Bhashini. Now, this is one which basically will allow non-English speakers to basically interact with AI and with the infrastructure behind it. So one could, as an entrepreneur, while trying to apply generative AI towards processes that are all about conversational finance, try and localize it. And this might be something where an Indian-based startup might actually have a distinct advantage over an American or a European-based startup that is basically trying to sell tools and trying to sell products into the Indian financial market for conversational finance. Because who better understands conversational finance in India than Indian companies, and potentially using Bhashini? So that's one thought. A second thought you could have really is around financial analysis. We all know, and you will as well, and some of you are already using text analytics to basically look at large reams of text. Bloomberg has something called Bloomberg GPT, where they're basically using ChatGPT in order to synthesize and condense a whole bunch of information, for their particular clients. So financial analysis absolutely lends itself to this kind of generative AI. But here again, there is an interesting localization opportunity that I think India could do quite differently. So I have a colleague at Case Western whose name is Dr. Rakesh Gupta. And one of the things he basically did was a study looking at conversational approaches in the case of text analytics. So he went, and he and his research team looked at movie reviews that were out there on Rotten Tomatoes and things of that nature, and sites of that kind, to figure out whether the sentiment in the movie review was correlated with box office success. Or sometimes you end up with critically acclaimed movies that don't necessarily translate to box office success. So he's trying to figure out what is too much or too little. And some people are, if something has a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, you automatically get a little suspicious perhaps as to how did it get to 98%. So that's what he was trying to do, he and his researchers. And they were looking at Hindi and they were looking at Bollywood movies. And they basically were using standard text processing kinds of things. And obviously they sort of said, if somebody's using the word bakwas, it must be a bad movie, right? So bakwas must be a negative sentiment. Then he realized that when people use the word mahabakwas, it actually meant a good thing. Like, it's so bad, it's good, right? And so the point is, who but a desi would know that mahabakwas actually is a good thing? And so therefore, when you think about financial analytics and you think about text processing and so forth, again, I think there's a strong localization element that Indian companies should be able to exploit to better understand the context of what perhaps the Indian documents are, the conversations are that are going on that can then be summarized into something useful. And a third and the last sort of dimension, or a use case, for example, for generative AI, would be that of synthetic data generation. Right? Now, what is synthetic data generation? Synthetic data generation is the ability for generative AI to create training data sets where you don't have enough training data sets. Right? A lot of AI works on the fact that there are training data sets. But in many situations that are relatively new, like in the Indian context, you do not have a historical bunch of data on credit applications and credit projections and so on to necessarily go through to train your model. So generative AI can be basically used to create synthetic data sets. Now, the problem with creating synthetic data sets of any sort is you're trying to replicate the past. And replicating the past can be very regressive. We want to change the world. If you simply replicated the past, nobody less than 6 feet would ever become a CEO. You notice that even Sunil is more than 6 feet tall, right? If you replicated the past, no woman would ever ascend to any senior role at Amazon, which was a problem that they had when they tried to create a training set which was based on historical data. While that may have been true then, question is, do you want it to be true going forward? So generative AI, when it is generating synthetic data sets, should be tempered with certain social expectations that the society might have for what it believes a reasonable fair set of outcomes could be. Now, this is something, again, that the West hasn't tackled. But in India, as we look to generate synthetic data sets, because we lack them, we have the opportunity to create synthetic data sets that actually are fair. And this might be a completely different and a unique angle that we can bring to the market, all right? So, given that it's a Finnovate conference, given we have 12 lovely companies here that are looking to sort of plot the future financial infrastructure of India, I think it's only fitting to conclude, A, by thanking the wonderful speakers that we had today. You know, it truly was wonderful. I had a chance to have lunch with them as well, and I must say, you know, I'm impressed, humbled, honored, and thankful that they chose to spend their time and positive energies, as Sunil likes to say, you know, with us today. So first and foremost, thank you, and please put your hands together for all those that... To all send your best wishes to the 12 companies that are in our accelerator today. You know, good karma is good karma no matter where it comes from. And we can express karma by, you know, putting our hands together for these 12 companies as well. And again, the whole program is possible because of our sponsors, because of those, our corporate partners that are putting in, you know, their effort, their expertise, the mentors, who many of them, all of them, are working pro bono in order to basically mentor, you know, these wonderful 20 or so entrepreneurs who are here today. Let's put our hands together to thank them as well. And finally, for those of you who do not fit into any of these three categories, let's put our hands together to thank you for being here. Thank you guys, enjoy tea, and thank you for participating today.
Thanks, Varun. Always a amazing experience listening to you speak. So may I request Dean Nagraj to hand over a small token of appreciation to Ms. Mansinka first. Ma'am, please, if you could come on stage. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Bhatia, may I please request you to come on as well? Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Okay, while we take the photo, I'd request all our participants to remain seated for the session with another SPJIMR alumni, Sujit. And after we finish the photo, may I request all our corporate partners and guests, you all to please proceed for high tea in the stilt area, which is right outside. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, once again. I hope you had as good a learning experience as I did this afternoon and evening. Students, please remain seated. Corporate partners, guests, you all could proceed for high tea. Thank you.